group that was started several years ago, and and we're happy to see it continuing. Could I have the next slide, please? Uh, we have an agenda set up based on input that we have received from people that they'd like to see some of the projects. And we have today 3 projects, which are ones that were received district grants and will be going forward for global grants from our district that we're going to see throughout the meeting. And we're going to talk about what the funding is for global grants for the coming year, and our district resource network, which is something that people have requested and we have started, plus some helpful hints from Minot on global grants, which is timely as people are often working on global grants, initiating them at this time of year. And then as a follow-up to the presentation that Minot made at the district conference, we'll update you on what's happening with Rotary Showcase briefly. And at the end, we'd be happy to hear what kind of projects you're looking at for the year. So hopefully we can keep this meeting to an hour and a half and moving along then. What I wanted to mention at this point was that somehow we have got a new situation in the district. We have an appointment of somebody called a DISC, which is District International Service Chair, which is a new position in Rotary, relatively new. And that somehow I fell into because I had said I would keep this meeting going. So I have been designated as the DISC for District 5360. And fortunately, as a result of that, I was able to go to Toronto last week where there was a meeting of these DISCs from all over Canada and the Eastern United States. So it was a chance to see what they expected of this position, which was good because what happened was that it turned out to be pretty much what people had told me they wanted to see, which is somebody that can get them some help in doing international work. And what the international view of it is actually a consulting position for the whole district. So my job, I gather, is to form a consulting firm, which we're trying to do with a number of volunteers that have been gladly agreed to volunteer. And we have resources that somebody's, I have background talking, please. Somebody, I'm sorry, I just lost my train. Anyway, we'll discuss this a little further into the agenda. Since I ended up in this position, I was able to participate into the granting process for next year. So do have the results of that, which was approved by the board recently. I have been involved, as I say, in recruiting of mentors, involved in the zone training, which took place in Toronto, and in getting this presentation up today. And I hope you all find it useful. So going forward, Manon, the first thing we're going to do is focus on one of the projects that has been approved by our district for district grants and is going forward for global grants. So I've asked Pat Kaloran from Lethbridge if he could talk about his project, Costa Rica Water. So Manon, if you could let him share his screen, please.
Barbara?
Yes?
It's Ted Stack. Could I make a request of the chair?
What would that be?
To put my presentation up first. I don't have slides, or I don't have a presentation formally prepared. I have notes about our project, but I got called into emergency service here to look after 4 grandchildren. And I'm at my daughter and son-in-law's home right now, trying to make sure that those kids are looked after.
Pat, would you mind if he does that?
No, I'm fine with that.
Would you? I sincerely appreciate that. I've got the door kind of partially open. The kids are old enough. The eldest is 10. So they're looking after the youngest, which is 2.5.
Well, I sympathize because I look after a 4.5-year-old.
Okay, so is it all right? I maybe should be apologizing to all of you.
Somebody
Um,
is, somebody please, could, Charles, do you have your phone still, your radio still on?
I just muted him.
oh, that's better.
Okay.
I'm
That's
just
better.
muting people that I see that are not.
Oh, good. You've got a way to do that. That's wonderful.
It's manual for now, but
So
Great.
thank you very much. I appreciate your indulgence, and I'll just go through, if I may, mostly verbalizing. I do have one screenshot that might be of interest, but I doubt it very much. I hope that I'm going to do what was expected of me, and that was to simply communicate about our project, and how it got started, and some of the issues that we've been facing, some of the positive outcomes. Although it's very young, we still haven't even we haven't got an update report yet on that project. So I don't have any kind of new news. So I'm going to be talking more about some of the challenges we went through in terms of getting the project launched. Is that satisfactory to everyone?
I think everybody would enjoy that. They just to know what the project is about and then what your challenges were.
Okay, that's great. I'll just start. I'll just make reference to some notes here, and I'll just talk a little bit off the cuff here. So our involvement started with an email from Jean Gagnon with the Rotary Club of Montreal to our club secretary, which we shared with our president and me as chair of our International Service Committee. And that email was in July of 2023. And I think it was one of those emails where the club was just reaching out to see how they could collaborate with other clubs. And that is it came about in an interesting way because I had set a goal for our committee last year to explore vigorously and positively about collaborating with other clubs to find projects. So we didn't end up repeating, donating funds to a particular project or particular group, that we would have a broader range of projects that we could take a look at funding. So that was really in kind of at the start of satisfying our goal of collaboration last year. So Jean and the Montreal Club appeared to be, and I'm not too sure, Jean or Jean. It looks like Jean to me in the email. And the Montreal Club appeared to be a good start. And then so that was in July. In September, Walter Hughes, whom some of you know, and I'd just like to know by show of hands, how many know of Walter Hughes? Okay, that's interesting. So Walter Hughes and Jean communicated about a global grant, and they CC'd Bob Weems, whom you know, most of you know, and I on a new project that with Bob's experience and knowledge combined with Walter and Jean's program, we knew we had the makings of a good start to a project if we could have all of the pieces come together. So Walter is with the Rotary Club of Salem in Virginia. So fast forward now to October of 23. So now almost coming 4 months later, we determined that we wanted to be the lead club in this project. Walter's experience was demonstrated right from the beginning of our communications in respect of WASH projects. That's his specialty. And he focuses primarily in Ghana. So we understand that he has been fundraising since 2006. And up until 2024, he, together with the Rotary Club of Montreal and a host of other clubs worldwide, has raised over 7 million Canadian dollars, impacting almost 1 million people. So he is an extraordinary Rotarian, and is so focused, and he has been so helpful to us in terms of getting us more involved in global grants, which in my opinion, I've only been on our World Community Service Committee for 4 years now, chair for one, and in my opinion, global grants are really a challenge. And if you can get a formula that works, if you can find a team that really knows what they're doing, the global grant process can the challenges can be eased somewhat. So our global grant is 24,57,321. It proposed 12 new water wells, 75 household micro flush toilets, and training that would benefit some 27,000 people. Now, one of the things I found in the global grant, the budget, I'll just maybe talk about that in a minute, but of interest, there was no breakout in the budget for training or ongoing maintenance, which we look at as promoting the sustainability of the project. So that was something that kind of leapt off the page to us as a committee, that maybe a little more work had to be done on that front. But I'll explain what kind of came out though at the end after the grant was approved. So there was also no budget for those of you who are interested in doing work that involves deep wells, water wells. There was no budget breakout for a hydrogeological report to provide assurances that the water existed below grade for each borehole. And there was further no specific confirmation that the well or wells that were to be drilled were actually located on lands that were owned by the community or owned by a person that could give permission to drill the wells. And apparently Bob Weens has just sent me over an information circular just yesterday, the day before, that Rotary International is getting very particular about drilling wells and making sure that the processes that are followed include initially a hydrological report to verify water is available, and secondly, that it's on land that is under the control after you put all the money into the well, and if you can't control who owns it, your money has not been put to good use. In terms of funding contributions in U.S. dollars, our club, along with the district, put up $19,200. Other clubs put up $32,000. The Rotary Fund put up $12,000 for a total of $63,200, which was the budget for the project that I've kind of outlined to you. So, in terms of challenges, what's really interesting in our view was that Walter had worked with a club in Ghana, the Sunyani Club, for years, and with very highly respected people, Rotarians and others, who had done a lot of very good work. And he came to our club to say that they've got the Sunyani Club put on notice that they were interested in this project, and they brought the players and representatives of the Rotary Club there to a Zoom meeting. We had a meeting, and then Walter went over to Ghana on a visit some weeks later, and then came back and said that, in his opinion, given what he saw and what our club was looking for, and made a point of saying from the very beginning of our involvement or potential involvement, that we wanted to be assured that there were experienced and very experience is all I could say. The term I'm looking for is that all well-rounded people that were involved, so that they could bring different perspectives to this process and this project. So we didn't leave any stones unturned or information that we should have asked that we didn't ask. So experience really is the word that explains it best. So, but after that on-site meeting that Walter had, he came back to us and said, we've decided to not proceed with the Sunyani Club, that we were going to work with the Kumasi Rotary Club, which he believed were equally as experienced, and he didn't go into too much more detail. But what it brought to our committee was the importance of on-site representation and inspection, verification. It is just so important. You're thousands of miles away from where your project is. So it becomes just so important to be confident that your money is being utilized the way that it was intended to be, and the way that you represented to your club that it was being represented and invested. So the other challenge that, and that's turned out very well, by the way, that was a very good decision. The other thing that we found was that we had some timing issues in getting our funds to RI Canada, but only because there are always things that come up that you have to plan for that are things beyond your control. And we had a changeover in our treasurer this past year, and he was away for a period of time. There's just a combination of things that just kind of complicated getting the funds out as quickly as we wanted to. And it didn't affect the project, but always a statement to our committee in our first meeting for this coming year yesterday was that as best you can, make sure that you've got a really good contingency in terms of time and dollars to make sure that you can execute your plan with a budget that respects both those elements. The other thing we had, another challenge we had, and I could be corrected on this, but it seemed to me like we were having a little bit of difficulty with our district granting process, subcommittee timing this past year. Someone may have a comment about that, I don't know. But it just seemed to me that there was some fund allocation challenges at the district level that maybe have slowed down some of the approvals for the DDF that we were looking for. Another challenge for us through this project was we did experience, and it was verified by Rotary International, that there were some changes in the scope of the project because there were questions that were asked by RI that they felt had not been answered in the original application. And there was a couple of questions that were asked, and the comment made by Rotary International was, if you don't have the answers to these questions now, we'll put your grant request back on hold until such time as you get this information to us. And Walter stepped right up and said, no, the information will be coming to you within days. Do not put the grant on hold. The project's necessary. Get all the players together. Let's just get this done. And he did it along with the team from the Rotary Club, the Kamasi Club. Ultimately, I don't believe there was any negative impact on the budget, but the high-level budget detail in the application that we received and that Rotary International also provided a summation of the budget in regard to their review. They didn't bring up the fact that there was no contingency in the budget, which I thought was strange, because exchange rates can vary dramatically day to day, week to week. There could be contractors who don't show up, who don't, there's so many things. I was involved in a project in Uganda for an orphanage there a couple of years ago. And it took us a good year and a half to get through all of the detailed budgeting and planning and finding the right contractors. It's a complicated process when you're so far away. And but the Rotary Club that you're working with is just so important to pick up where we can't be there. They are your eyes on the project, and they help enormously if they have the right kind of experienced people. The budget remained unchanged, even though there was a change from the original project scope, where we were going to do 8 deep wells, and then it was changed to 12, and the number of microflush toilets increased from 60 to 75, but there was no change in the budget, and I have no idea how that came about. Absolutely none. I just don't know how you can drill that many more wells and put up that many more microflush toilets and not have a change in the cost of the project. And that hasn't come to fruition yet in terms of being a problem. So moving on, the project was fully funded by February the 5th, 24. But after the project was fully funded, and the application and all the information had been submitted to RI, it wasn't until May the 15th that a number of questions and concerns came out from RI. So we went through almost all of February, all of March, all of April, and half of May, and now we hear that there's issues with the application. So a problem in my mind, but something else, again, we don't control that process, that review process. And I believe now that all of that has been resolved, the project is proceeding, information was communicated. There were a couple of policy issues in the in the international information that came back to us that I think need to be dealt with at a higher level. I don't want to go into those now. But I'll just what I'd like to do is conclude, if I may, by focusing on one of the things that Walter made clear to us, and that was in all the projects he's worked on, they developed a formula that really works. But he said one of the most important things, and I think you'll agree with this, is empowerment. The word empowerment is critical for benefiting the community and the persons that are going to be benefiting from our project support to realize the total benefit of what they are receiving and what they own. It becomes community property. And it's absolutely true, I think, that if everything is 100% charitable, and there's no empowerment or buy-in by the community, it produces absolute dependence on Rotary going forward. And I think that there's, in Walter's view, and I think it's been shown many, many times, is that when the community buys in and they believe they own, they'll manage and sustain that infrastructure for a much longer period of time and be very positive about the benefits and the outcomes. And the other thing that I would conclude my comments is I would simply say that I think this is an obvious statement, and it's something that I think you would probably all know, and that is that the project's success depends entirely on the team and the community attitude towards the project outcomes and the benefits.
Thank
So
you very much.
that's really all I have to say. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Ted, thank you so much for that. I think that I saw Jerry's head nodding in agreement with you almost every time you made a comment. So these are practical aspects and things that people run across a lot in doing projects. And one of the reasons I think that if we build a team of support for individuals working on projects for the first time or the second time, it gives the kind of experience that you were talking about, which really leads to a project being successful. And that's what we're aiming for with our consulting group in this district. And also, well, we have a couple of cadres in that group, and there's the whole cadre group to help people as well. So thank you very much for pointing out those things. We very much appreciate it.
You're most welcome. I apologize sincerely for leaving you. I'd love to hear what the rest of you have to say, but I just can't.
Well,
So
I understand completely.
I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm obviously a pub runner, and if anybody's interested in chatting with us further, I'd be delighted to chat with you. So thank you very much, and have a great meeting.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
And I think that if we now, having had that presentation, if we could go back to Pat Kaloran's presentation from the Lethbridge Club. Manon, can you get Pat's, give him ability to share his screen, please? Pat, over to you.
Yes, everybody has the ability to share their screen. Bob.
Sorry, I was muted there and I was talking to myself.
Okay, you're good
So
to go.
are you seeing my screen? I'm working with two screens too, so I just want to be sure.
Yes, we are seeing.
Okay, we'll do slideshow and from the beginning.
There, perfect.
Okay, we're good. So this project, we do projects each year in Costa Rica. So there's going to be some differences then that you'll see in terms of the relationships and the development of these that are somewhat overcome because of the long time relationship we have. But this project was approved a week ago, last Friday. So we're in the funding stage and so on. So let me just begin by saying that the project is in Costa Rica. If you see that circle to the left of the word Costa Rica, that's where this one is. That other dot is where we were last year. And we're doing a water project here, and just the benefit side of it, there's 12 communities involved. The project is 76,000 US, 7,000 people, 2,000 families that will benefit in those 12 communities. There's piping or tubing, repair, tanks, and pumps all involved in the project. The Rotary Club of Lethbridge, Rotary Club of Lethbridge East, and the Rotary Club of San Jose Noreste, which is the the host club in Costa Rica, that is our partner there. I get going, forget I got notes. So just a little, the funding, I won't spend a long time on this, but basically with the district funding and the Rotary Foundation funding, our club is 59,000, Lethbridge East is 11, and the club in Costa Rica is 5,600. And usually our clubs in Costa Rica do participate financially in all the projects that we do with them, which is not always the case in some parts of the world. So, I mentioned it's in Costa Rica, this area. We're just with the local people here looking at the map where those communities are located. But before I go too further, I want to talk about the situation in Costa Rica. Water there is well legislated, and communities, each community with a water system has what they call an ASADA. An ASADA is a Spanish acronym, but that's basically the water utility in that community. And there are, I think, some 2,000 in the country. I think there's 111 in the canton or the county in which we are working with these particular communities. And the project began as a 25 locations and 250,000 US dollars. That's total cost, of which the communities were paying half. Again, something that's not always happens in projects. Project was still too big for us. So we found another club in Costa Rica in the same city who found a partner in Texas, split the project. And so our project is half of what we're seeing on the screen here. The amounts that you saw earlier was the half, and that was what we're doing at this particular point in time. And so in that area to the west side of Costa Rica, those were the 25 red dots you see, and half of those are part of the project. The project involves tubes or piping. It's usually plastic that are put into the ground. It involves repair and pumping, and it involves tanks for water and some repairs. And so just some visual. This is an example of some of the piping that's put down in these 12 communities. Not every community has the same needs, so I won't tell you that every community is getting this piping, but there is 4 kilometers, about 4,000 meters of piping being purchased with the grant money. This is a pump going into a well, and we aren't drilling the wells. We've left that where necessary to them and their money. So we don't have that issue of dry holes that Ted was concerned about, but we are putting in pumps in 3 different wells as part of the project in 3 different communities. Tanks are a big part of the project. Water comes either from the well or from an aqueduct or a spring in the mountains, and fills the tank, and then the tank distributes to the community households. The bottom one is an old concrete tank. That's the type of tank that's in need of repair. The one sitting on top, so they obviously have more than one tank, but it's a plastic tank. I'm going to guess that maybe 5,000 liters. This is another picture of 20,000 liter tanks with the Rotary logos on them in a different community, but then you have an idea of where the water is coming into and then being distributed out of. Each of the communities under the legislation, there's a number of things that happen, but the need for chlorination or not the need for chlorination, but the need to sample and test water and chlorinate where necessary are all part of what's required of these communities. So this happens to be the chlorination system in one of the communities that we did. I just took that for pictures. The other thing in this picture is the meters. So all of the 2,000 families that we talked about in these 12 communities have meters and pay for their water. They pay roughly $15 a month on average, but the more you use, the more you pay. That's the system that they work in, and that is part of the opportunity of conserving or promoting conservation, is by making people pay more if they use more. So that's the project that's happening in those 12 communities, and just 2 or 3 slides of things that I think are important to consider. So the first thing is the partner club, and we heard from Ted about the partner club. So I think absolutely critical in a good project. We've done projects in Africa and in Asia, and I can tell you, not all Rotary clubs are the same when it comes to this type of work. We've had a relationship for 15 years with the club, and this is members of my club. You can see myself there, and members of the club down in Costa Rica. And it's sort of a planning meeting that we had prior to a project. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but we have a 15-year relationship. We've done 15 or 20 projects. And the point is that we have a high degree of confidence in their experience in sourcing the projects, in managing the projects, in the financial bookkeeping that needs to be done, and managing payment of invoices, and in a timely way. So I think a critical part, and I think if you've got that kind of relationship, my advice is to protect it. From time to time, we'll hear members say, well, we've done several projects here, let's go to wherever, with another suggestion. And I'm saying, well, you find us the partner and the relationship that we can depend on and count on, and we'll consider doing those things. And we have done projects in other parts of the world, but I don't think we've got a relationship anywhere that's as strong as this one in Costa Rica. The second thing is the NGO. There should be, if at all possible, a non-government organization. It's not always possible, but in the projects that we do, we always have one. In this case, this is an organization formed from all of the Asadas to provide services back to them. And they have a CEO. He was in a picture earlier, and they're located in Olancho, and an office like this, but they're a critical part to delivering the boots on the ground part of it. Even the Rotary Club, even though they're in country, are not in these communities all the time. And so this organization is a big part of the project, and important, I think, in most cases. The next thing I think is the needs assessment approach. And I think you heard Ted talk about going and touching and feeling the project, the community. I strongly support that. I'm off in 5 weeks to Costa Rica for the next year to examine a couple of possibilities down there. And it's really an important aspect of understanding what's going on and what the factors are that will affect your project. The picture there, I think, is just the start. We're out doing a little visiting with the CEO of the NGO, but we're starting in this the needs assessment piece. The way I say this very simply is, are we doing what they need, or are we doing what we think they need? And so often and so the visit's an important part of developing that. Commonly, there will be work done by your host Rotary Club before you arrive on the ground to kind of get you pointed in the right direction. But I think it's an important thing. And you can see in this particular project, we had 2 days of meetings with the communities to talk about their needs, about the projects. Because of the 25 communities, we split them up into 12 or 13 each day, because with the 2 clubs and with the NGO, and had a good opportunity to discuss our expectations and their needs in order to formulate the project. And so again, the needs assessment, extremely important part of any project in my estimation. Sustainability. Also, I don't have a slide on that, but again, Ted talked about this. In this particular case, we're working with existing organizations that have been running these community water systems, in some cases for 30 or 40 years, have a revenue because the government says they have to charge for water. They just don't have enough. The government doesn't give them any funding, and they don't have enough money to do the capital requirements to expand or repair or upgrade. And so that's where our piece of the puzzle comes in. But certainly we we're concerned always about the sustainability. In this particular case, the communities were well established in doing what they're doing and would be continuing to do it and to provide water to themselves, to their own communities over time. So, I mean, again, the definition to me of sustainability is that when we come home, how does it continue to run? In this case, it was running before we got there, so it will continue to run. We didn't build into this one, into the agreements we have with the communities, the requirement to open a savings account in each community and save the equal amount as to what we were spending in their community over the next 10 years to be available then for the next repair, next maintenance, or the next project that they might do. This picture is a little bit of a shift, but if we ever wonder about the value of youth exchange, this young lady, and it didn't happen to be a Rotary exchange, but she went for an exchange to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, learned English, and was just immeasurably important in all of the work that we were doing in the offices of the NGO, because she was the only one in that office that spoke English. She was a translator for us. Our Rotarians speak English there, but not the NGO. And so I just thought it was interesting, the value of an exchange in this particular project, even though it wasn't a Rotary one. And then just to wind up quickly, oh no, actually the grant application, and Ted spoke about this, and the applications are simple, they're thorough. There is the application guide and so on, which I encourage you to pay attention to. There's a number of source or support documents, depending on the project you're doing, that are in there that you should be aware of. I try to skip those sometimes, and Rotary doesn't always let me. But I encourage you to do that. The training or behavioral change piece. Ted mentioned this, extremely important. The one that we just had approved last week, we wanted to, our behavioral training, our training was to provide governance, financial, and customer service training to the 12 boards of directors of the 12. I said that wasn't good enough for Rotary. We had to change the behavior of the community. Even though these people have been using these systems for 30 years, so it was something that a couple $1,000s worth of brochures got us over the hump, and that's how we're going to, through the school system and through the utilities, circulate those brochures. But very sensitive issue when you do a global grant, so pay attention to it, and make sure that in some way you can convince Rotary that you're doing behavioral change. The last quick slides here. This is Grace. She's an 85-year-old woman who lives by herself. She has to go down to this hole in the deep into a little valley and get her water out of this every day, and we couldn't help her. She was one of 20 families that would have been in a system of their own and required $50,000 in order to do what they needed to do for 20 families to have water. And we were we were sad that we were unable to. And I'm not so sure that there isn't going to be some other way down there that we're not involved in that will get her some water coming to her door. But this a big challenge. This area is called the Blue Zone, of which there's only 5 in the world, of which the average age is significantly higher than the normal average age. And so there's a lot of seniors, elderly parts of their life that need water that we can't always supply. So that's a quick run through of our project. Lots of more pieces to it, detailed pieces that we don't have time for today. But thank you for the opportunity, Barb, to present that to you. And certainly, again, I'm also willing if there's any questions.
I think that anybody in this group could get back to either of you with individual questions. And I think it's really important. A couple of things come out, the boots on the ground are really critical in the success of any project and establishing relationships in a community. So often going back to the same community, even though you might not want to only do that, is really important moving to try and make an impact on the world and know that the projects will be handled properly. And I think that a lot of us have found that in the past. So thank you very much. Manon, could you, yeah, so uh these grants, and there's one more we'll discuss in a little bit here, were all funded through as with DDF from our district, and they were funded under a pre-existing set of rules. So this year, we were able to have input at the district conference. I asked people what they thought and transmitted those ideas to the granting committee. And they listened and brought forward a recommendation to the board in September. And that recommendation was reviewed at some length, I understand, by the board. And they made some modifications, but what they've decided for this coming year is what is included here. And this will be on a copy of this presentation that will go out to all of you. So the same thing applies this year. The lead club, 4,000 US dollars, will generate 15,000 from the district. There will be one-to-one matching of DDF over 1,000, over 4,000, one-to-one up, which we had before, but up to a $5,000 max this year. To what the effort is to try and have enough money to cover grants from a number of clubs. This year, we only got one grant for each of the clubs that applied, and it took a lot of work on part of the committee to make that happen. In fact, they diverted some money from other activities in order to accomplish that. But the idea is to try and give as many grants as possible. And they're reducing the number of supporting global grants to 2. So again, there were clubs last year who got a large number of supporting grants, which was great for them, but it limited the money available for others. The supporting club grant is again 2,000 from the club, will generate 5,000 from the district. And the club last year was allowed 3 supporting grants. This year we're saying 2. It doesn't limit them to this district. However, I know that when we were looking at the grants from last year, it became evident there were so many projects in the district that it wasn't thought feasible to fund ones from outside the district with the supporting grants. So it's something to think about when you're deciding what you're going to do in your club this year. And so the district, the matching at TRF will still be 80%. In Toronto, we were fortunate to have the head of the foundation speak to us, and the incoming president in our little group of 30 people, actually. So it was pretty evident that they were talking specifically to our interests, that they're not planning on changing anything in this foreseeable future, except that the large projects of size may go up to 2.5 million. So, and they will increase the participation on the part of the sponsoring clubs. But we're looking at the same sort of situation, not TRF as we've seen before. So the foundation will only be matching 80% of the funds from the district and no funds from the clubs. So that doesn't mean that you can't get funds from other places that aren't matched. If you could see the next slide, please, Manon. These slides are great the way you're showing them. It's working wonderfully. So what we're looking at now, if you're looking at just the matching portion, the club contribution of $4,000 will earn 15,000 from the district. And then if the club contributes another 5,000, they'll get an additional 5,000. If they get 2 supporting grants, which is the maximum number for that grant, they will get another 14,000. That is 2,000 from each club, and the 5,000 from the district for each one. And then TRF's 80% of funds from the district will give us another 24. So in this sort of process, you could start with 4,000 plus 5, $9,000 and end up with the total project of 67,000. And you could get more money, but it won't be matched anywhere. So anything else you raise would be independent of district and global grants. So that's where we're at for the coming year. Everybody was anxious to know what it would be so that they could get working on what they are planning to do. And hopefully this is helpful. So moving forward then, Manon, can I go ahead a couple of slides? Thank you. We've had Ted, and then I will speak to this next topic, a district resource network. At the district meeting, when we had a breakout session, and at prior meetings, and I know in our own club, one of the things that people have said is most critical is getting mentors, people to help you when you're first doing a global grant, or if you're doing a global grant in a new area of expertise, to get help is really makes a difference in getting the grant prepared. So we have started a district resource network, and the current members are listed here. And I'd like them just each to say about one line about what they've done before. Those that are here now, Doug, I think had to go away. He's at his daughter's.
I'm actually here online now.
You're there. Oh, our timing is good, Doug. You can start and tell us you're a cadre as well as being the president, or excuse me, the chair of the International Club for Calgary Downtown. Can you speak to your expertise in international work or your experience?
Sure. I'm a neonatologist. That's a pediatrician who takes care of newborn babies. Now retired. My expertise has been in developing learning programs for newborn care and with some association with maternal care. The big thing that I'm involved with right now is a consultation for a program of scale grant. For those of you who may need just to be reminded, there's a single $2 million grant provided each year. And last year we were one of two finalists, and this next year we're applying again. The total project would be $6 million in Uganda for teaching maternal and newborn care to healthcare workers. Well, if it doesn't go, there's currently a global grant for the current year. I've also been, I'm also a member of the International Rotary Fellowship of Healthcare Professionals and sit on their board just as of this year. We've been mostly involved with sending supplies to Ukraine, and the area of maternal and newborn health. This has been slings. They enable kangaroo mother care or skin to skin care, especially for small babies, but have had a big use as mothers rush with their babies from hospital to the bomb shelter. And finally, I'm still involved in some other activities that relate through the International Pediatric Association, and some of them interdigitate with Rotary. One of them is in November. I'll be in Sierra Leone and doing some teaching again related to newborn care. I'm happy to help where I can.
Thank you, Doug. So with all these people, they have agreed, you can contact them. They'll do whatever they can to help you. And in addition to their area of expertise, they can also help you with the general aspects of doing a global grant because they all have experience. And we come to another one. We're lucky in our district, 2 cadres. If you don't know what a cadre is, they're the people that go out and help evaluate for Rotary the larger programs that are being run around the world and make recommendations on how they see those projects developing. They are also available. All cadres have made themselves available around the world to people. So if you want a cadre that we don't have expertise in our zone, you can also contact the international head of the cadres, who happens to be Carolyn Johnson, who is known to quite a few of you, and she will connect you with somebody who can help you. So next cadre, Wally. Wally, can you speak for a couple minutes, just quickly, please?
I'm hoping so. Thanks very much, Barb. In addition to being a cadre, I'm also the incoming president for the Rotary Action Group for Community Economic Development. We're the official area of focus Rotary Action Group linked directly to the foundation. And within our group, we have about 55 cadre around the world that are specialists in CD projects. But as you mentioned, we're also dabbling in other areas, if you would, helping people with things. In addition, I guess the biggest thing we do is, in addition to being sort of we used to be viewed as the Rotary police. We're trying to get out of that image when we're checking out grants and things. If you have a grant over $50,000 US, then a cadre person will be sent out by the foundation and to make sure that Rotary Club funds are being used properly. It's part of the stewardship function of the foundation. And I've done several of those particular tasks, and I'm doing several right now. So primarily the job of a cadre is to help you get the money out of the foundation, help you with community assessments, make sure your project fits within an area of focus, give you general advice on basically how to write a grant that will get itself approved. At the present moment, about 92% of the applications are approved, and the other 8% we're sort of looking at right now as to why they didn't get approved or why they got abandoned. So we're here to help you. If you have in particular a CD project for community economic development, please let me know. And if you need a cadre to help you with that, I can help you with some things, but more than likely, I'll find you a cadre with CED experience in the area that you're in, the regional area of the world you're working in. So you have boots on the ground as well. So I'm available all the time for questions, whatever, send me email. I'm Wally Gardner Rotary at Gmail or Gardner Computer at shaw.ca, or phone me, drop by for coffee, whatever I can do to help. Thanks very much.
You're muted, Barb.
My apologies. I believe Wally is in High River, so that's close to Calgary for sure, and a lot of other communities, but we're so lucky to have good Zoom these days. The next person on the list is Jerry Darachuk, who will be speaking to us shortly about a project. But Jerry, do you want to just quickly comment on your prime area of expertise?
Well, generally, I work on larger projects with multiple players, collaboration between multiple Rotary clubs as well as private enterprise. And so in my talk, I think I will give you a good example of what I mean. So I'll leave the rest for my talk.
Thank you. And the next one, of course, is Manon, who's been most helpful in getting us all together here. Manon, do you want to talk to what you've been doing? You've been very active in this coaching area recently.
Yes, I have. So I'm currently mentoring folks at the Rotary Club of Calgary Centennial and folks up in Grand Prairie with putting in their application and getting all the information ready to go. I've had numerous global grants being successful. I've been working in Cambodia for 10 years now. And that was basically in basic education and literacy, but I've also been involved in empowering women and girls type projects, more specifically WASH projects dealing with menstrual hygiene. And I've got one in the works right now waiting for the community assessment to come through so that we can finally submit the application. So most willing to help. Catch me this year, because next year I'll be DGE. I probably won't have that much time, but catch me this year, and I'm most eager to help out because I know that doing a global grant is not for the faint of heart. It does require work, and I'm here to help you out and guide you through the process.
Well,
Thank you.
next year might have a little time because you got one more year to be DG after this year. So you're
Let me
DG
tell you,
elect.
after my training in Toronto this past week, I thought it was going to be a walk in the park.
No,
It just, well, it's building relationships. That's what it is. So it's a lot of fun, but it's time consuming.
is Kurt there? I saw him in the background a couple of times.
He is in the kitchen. Yes.
Does he,
So if you want to do, talk about
is Steve here? Is Steve on the call? I don't know if Steve is on the call here. Maybe not. Steve is also very active in economic and community development. And if Kurt is coming back, he can speak to what
There he
he's
is.
been doing. Kurt?
You can sit down.
Oh, hello.
So would
everyone.
you like to tell people a bit, Kurt, about in a very short comment about what you've been doing and what you can help people with?
Well, I have been the district grants chair in the past and district Rotary Foundation chair in the past. So a fair broad knowledge about applying for global grants as well as for district grants. So fairly knowledgeable on what both the district and the Rotary Foundation are looking for when you apply for a grant. Specifically, the global grant I've done and many of the projects I've done have focused on water in schools. And by that, I mean not just the water, but wash projects, latrines, sanitation, hygiene, education, the whole component. A fair bit of exposure to education, basic education and literacy projects as well. So that's sort of where I could help out.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure a lot of people would appreciate your help. As you notice, we cover quite a few areas, but nobody in peace and conflict resolution or environment. So if you know of anybody in the district who has that kind of expertise and would like to nominate them for this committee, that would be wonderful. Or if there's anybody else that you feel we could benefit from their expertise, if you let me know, that would also be great. We would appreciate it. So these people are here. This is our consulting company, folks, and they're there to help, and particularly, hopefully, help the smaller clubs that are just getting started. And I will be talking in the future about some initiatives that are underway in other areas of Canada, particularly in small clubs working together to put funds together from the different clubs and be able to go forward with projects that they couldn't have afforded on their own, but maybe a group of 3 or 4 clubs pooling their money and working to try and come up with a project together. And this kind of help would be immeasurably important. So we go on now to Manon. And Manon will give you some helpful hints for preparing global grants that maybe you want to share with some of the people in your area. Manon.
Thank you very much, Barb. Sorry, I had to find the mute button. Got 2 screens going. So this is kind of distilling what you've heard from our 2 Rotarians before. So first of all, the whole idea is plan to work and then work your plan. So the first thing, sorry, I keep sliding over the mouse and it keeps moving back. The first thing is figuring out who your partners are going to be. And you heard before that you really need to find the right partners. Don't be afraid to switch partners. I have done that myself, both with cooperating organizations as well as with Rotary Club. So figure out who's going to be the boots on the ground. Our district does have travel grants that you can plug into to visit the country in which you would like to do a project. and cover your expenses so that you can do specifically this and find the right Rotary Club and find the right NGO and have the discussions and do some needs assessment. So needs assessment, great and important thing. So you should be researching your club, your cooperating organization, find them out, and then use them to do your community assessment and build that report. Either have them build it, or by them, I mean the Rotary Club in partnership with the NGO, or you can be part of that as well. The current one I'm working on, the entire community assessment is done in Spanish. They're doing it. I'm not doing it. I'll read some of it because Google Translate is awesome, but that's where it ends. But it's the Rotary Club over there that's doing all the work. Okay, once you know that, then you know what the needs are. Now you can figure out, well, what are we going to do? So figure out what the activities are, who your beneficiaries are. Do you have equipment? When and where are you going to do this? And what do you want to achieve? So build all of that. You need all of that now. And the two more important things, or two other important things, are how much is this going to cost? Put a price tag to it. Then go and find the money and use the Global Grants Financing Calculator. Now, one thing about the budget that you're going to put together is all of the items and all of the items and activities that you're planning on doing need to fall under the 14 different TRF categories. What are these categories? You know what? You can pop into the Grant Center, start a global grant. Doesn't mean you have to do it right away, but you can go through all the questions and you can get all of that information right in the Grant Center. And all of the resources that you need to put your grant together are all in the Grant Center. All of that and more is there. So our district will be coming out with the new revised Global Grants Financing Calculator, so that you can do the appropriate calculations to figure out what money you are looking for from TRF. So plan your work and then work the plan, folks. And it is very systematic, very logical. Become friends with Excel if you're not friends already, and become friends with Microsoft Word. Those two applications will help you dramatically. Okay. That's
Thank you,
about
Minot.
it. Mhm.
And you're up again with you at the district conference. As I said, you spoke at the breakout session about the use of Rotary Showcase, and there have been some changes. So can you tell people what's happened?
Well, this was so funny because when was a district conference? First weekend in May, and then off to Singapore I go. And what do I find in the House of Friendship? But the person who's responsible for the showcase, and she says, guess what? The showcase is changing. Okay, I just presented on this. So what is it? It is now called the Rotary Service Project Center. And you will find it. You go to rotary.org, you click on My Rotary, and you sign in. When you sign in to My Rotary, you will see these 6 rectangles. Pop into Learning Center because you can learn about how to fill out grants from there. But what we're looking at now is the Service Project Center. And the Service Project Center, when you click on it, you will now get into a completely different interface than what we had before. And in this interface, you will see that there are 3 menus that you can engage with. And we'll have a look at those quickly. So the first menu is the home page. This is where you can search projects by keyword or by other criteria. You can look at just the projects in your district, or you can find a location. What other projects are happening in the Ukraine right now? You can pick Ukraine from there and have a look. That's, of course, given that the project champions have put their information in here. So it really is to our benefit to put all our projects in here so that we can share this information with others. Okay, that's the home menu. The next menu is browse projects. I had to shrink this down to make it fit on this screen, but go in and you'll see everything here. You can search by keyword. Whoops, I slipped back. You can search by keyword, project status, what category, area of focus. If you're just looking for WASH projects, you can just filter by that. So there's a number of criteria that you can use here to browse through projects. And when you browse, you will see the image that the organization put there and just a quick summary. Of course, if you want to see more detail, you can click on it, and actually there's a see more beside it, and you can pop into there and have a look at the details. And then the final menu is My Club Projects. So all of your club projects should be listed in here. And you know what? It's not just international projects. You can put your local club projects in here. Why not? This is all the work that Rotary does. We need to toot our horn. This is a wonderful way of doing it, is by putting your projects in here. And again, very easy to use. I think it's on the homepage that you can add your own project and put in all that information. So have fun in there. Go have a look. It's very, very educational. Thanks you. Back to you, Barb.
Well, thank you very much, Manon. And we did talk about maybe if people were interested, we could have a special session on how to use this particular page later. And you did say, I believe, that that could happen.
Barb,
so
do you
if
want to answer a question at this point? Pauline has had her hand up for a while.
Oh, I'm sorry, Pauline. I missed that. Where are you?
No, I just put it up. All's good. I have a quick
Oh.
question for you, Manon. I'm in a
Yes.
very small club and we would like to use our money to contribute to projects that are already underway. And I have gone in and looked at the browse project list. Can we assume that everything listed there has been vetted in terms of financially viable and corruption free, et cetera, et cetera?
Good question. I would look at the status of the project. If it's in progress, then you can assume that everything has been vetted. If it's draft, and I would have to look at the different statuses that exist. If it's draft, then not yet vetted. Of course, the contact information of the folks doing the project is right in the detail, and you can certainly contact them. If they are local, you can use Club Runner on your phone, give them a phone call. Yeah, I mean, if it is a global grant and it's approved, then it's been vetted.
Thank you.
TRF is very good at being on top of things, and they have, well, anyway, they're very good at that. So you
Thank
can
you.
trusted source. You're welcome. Barb, back to you.
Thank you very much. And we move on, and thank you with all that information. We'll see now some work that's been done that's been quite successful, I believe. Jerry, do you want to tell us about what you've been doing in Ukraine? You're muted.
I gotta figure out how to share my screen.
Yeah.
What's that?
There. Oh,
Oh,
we got a
what do
lot.
what do you see?
A bunch of little ones.
You see a
A
picture?
picture. We see
Okay.
a picture.
Okay, this is only going to be a few pictures just to kind of refresh my memory, okay? But
Go ahead.
I'm going to give you an overview of the Ukraine project, but first understand it's not a single project, it's multiple projects, okay? And so to understand that, I'm going to start from the very beginning and I'll quickly work my way through. Any of you are aware the war started February 2022, okay? Canada passed the Evacuee Act March 18th. March the 20th, the first family was sent to Canada. A student of mine is in immigration, and I got this phone call, will you pick them up? I ended up with the very first family in Canada. March the 20th, they arrived, and as you've noticed, you probably saw them on brochures at district conferences, correct? And the purpose of that project there was to help them acclimatize to their accommodations in Canada. So our club, with the help of the district, we raised about $167,000, most of it from private persons, and that went into sustaining quite a few families. We then moved, that project got moved over to the Calgary Stampede Club, and you know the results they've got. They raised over $500,000 to accommodate over 13,000 Ukrainian evacuees in our city. Okay, so that's how we started. But if some of you older members can remember, in 2002, our district hosted a Ukrainian study group, a group study exchange, and they happened to live in my house for a few days. One of the young men there, Mykola Steblenko, he's now a Rotarian, a very high-standing Rotarian, lives in Odessa, and I get this call to help. And we immediately raised funds. Again, the next project became a small project with 25,000 US disaster relief grant from the district. Okay, and we went from there and bought $45,000 worth of medical supplies. Okay. Oops. So that would be almost a year ago, and I delivered these myself to Ukraine. Now, you get a guy almost 80 years old handling 400 pounds of tourniquets through customs. I made a lot of tourists laugh as I'm going through Heathrow and Warsaw, and you can imagine it, okay? But I've done worse. Oops. Anyway, I had 2 weeks in Ukraine. My primary objective was to deliver medical supplies, but it turned out that being I'm by myself, and I met one of the senior commanders, and he asked if I would like to go to the front and deliver them right to the front medical, right where the immediate field medics were. Well, that took about a half a second to say, yeah. I took my armor off, and at the end of the day, I was pretty tired. But these are the kind of places that I delivered medical supplies to. They're not as pretty as MASH, as you saw on TV, and they are probably within 500 meters of the front. They had to be really close, because if there's an injury, their biggest enemy at the front is bleed out. And so I was delivering tourniquets and blood packs. And this would be a house with the windows closed up and the medics. It's amazing how many people I found from other countries. The first 4 medics I met were from Brazil. Okay. I don't, that's, when you get into places like that, you do tend to see a bit of blood. Okay. And the thing about it is those people are so professional. In a way, you see a lot of this, obviously. There's my delivery of medical supplies to another group. And I wanted to go back here. I spent a lot of time with the groups that fly the drones. So I spent several days there, and it's hard to describe it. I've been doing a lot of fundraising for Ukraine, and I speak, like yesterday morning, I spoke at the Rotary Club of Canmore. But what's interesting is the discussions you have. Now, 5 days living in the same clothes, living in whatever you can find, it has an impact on you. Getting back to Kiev was my time now to meet the Rotarians. Okay, and now we're getting into the newest and latest, our biggest project. This is the past president and past DG of Kiev Capital Rotary Club. Now, we spent a couple of days with a variety of Rotarians and also community civil servants about what their needs were. We'll call it a needs assessment. One of the previous speakers spoke of it, and I value that part of the project quite a bit. Anyway, it boiled down to rehabilitation. They wanted a way to bring these people back into society. Okay, so we visited a fairly good rehab center. This one is in Lviv, so it's pretty modern and it's pretty safe. But they needed more facilities closer to the front. And so we sat down and developed a project. The project was the rehab center of a hospital. The budget came in and this was after a lot of arguing, but 950,000 Canadian. Well, we broke that down into components. First of all, the hospital that we had selected was a hospital that had one of its wings damaged by a bomb. But we could not put construction into a project. So we broke this down into basically 4 components. Private sector managed by the city council and the hospital. That was 350,000. They didn't have the money, but they had the ability to get the work done. I spend millions of dollars in Germany for equipment in my factories. And so a few phone calls, and we found some companies that said, we'll pay the bill. That took care of the biggest hurdle. The second, the balance was still beyond the capacity of a Rotary project. So we broke it into 2 components. We broke it into physical rehabilitation and mental rehabilitation. We have good friends in Sweden, and you cannot get better Rotarians than the Swedes. Let me tell you, they are phenomenal. With our friendships in Sweden, the Rotary Club of HRNO, they said they will take the part of the mental if we pay for the equipment on the physical. So now we broke it into a private part in Europe, mental rehabilitation section for the hospital out of Sweden. That's a global grant. And the physical equipment out of Calgary North, and that's a global grant. That still left us about 100 and some thousand short. And that came from private enterprise here in Alberta. I don't know if you know, but I was a school teacher in the late 60s and early 70s. And a couple of my students had decided they were going to help their teacher. They raised the largest amount. They put in $50,000. And so between that and additional help and other clubs, we came up with a budget to do the full 950,000. I have been speaking to Rotary clubs right across this province on how they can support Ukraine by either participating here or starting something on their own, which we will help. In our global grant, there are 8 partner clubs. I think probably Manon, you know them all. The Medicine Hat and Olds and Centennial and Millennial and Canmore and downtown Calgary, and so on. And then some are partners by just giving cash and not being part of the application. So this project of doing the hospital was made of a lot of partners, but the funds are pretty well done on the hospital. The building, as of Tuesday morning's meeting, the building is about 98% done. We're ready for move-in. The global grant on the Swedish side has delivered as of this morning. Rotary moved those monies to Kiev. Our global grant is at the last stage. It has been approved at RI and it's ready to get the last signature, and it'll be moved to Kiev. So the funds are now in place to complete. There's our partners from, the Rotary Club of HJO. I don't know how to say that, but they are the nicest bunch of people you've ever met. And these are pictures of the hospital site in construction, okay? And you know how Rotary is with construction. That's why we had to pull that section out. Now, at all the Rotary clubs that I've been speaking at, many want to do things on their own. I'm going to give you an example. The 3 Rotary clubs of Medicine Hat, we've raised $20-some thousand independent of Rotary, and they are sending 40-foot containers of medical supplies. Their first container has already been delivered to the hospitals. It left three weeks ago. It got into Ukraine last week. It was unloaded in Lviv, and the vans carrying it to the different hospitals has already dispersed it. We have 2 more containers sitting here in Calgary right now, full of very high quality medical equipment. And that's done by the 3 Rotary clubs of Medicine Hat with the help, Rotary Club of Sherwood Park, Rotary Club of Athabasca. The Rotary Club of Downtown Edmonton is funding pretty good. Rotary Club of Sarnia and Kingston. So the funds are coming in not just from our district, but from any Rotary Club and non-Rotary group. I speak at a law firm next week who want to put a good chunk into this. And so this is spinning off into other projects. And we're expecting to do stuff like this, the equipment that's required. Anyway, that gives you a little bit of an idea of the size of the key element here was collaboration between Rotary clubs. Now, I have partner clubs in Latvia, Finland, and Sweden that wish to partner with clubs here. And the first meeting is being set up. It's already arranged with the Rotary Club of Calgary. Sonny Balinki is arranging it. Are you aware of that, Barbara? Okay, it'll be at 10 o'clock on Zoom next Tuesday with Latvia and Sweden doing their presentation for a mobile clinic unit.
Well, we haven't been told of the time yet, but I know Sonny's been involved.
Yeah, Sonny's involved. And we have a similar presentation going to the Stampede Club. Okay, so I'm trying to facilitate 2 more major projects there. Now, all the funds that I do a lot of fundraising, not just for my own club, but for example, the monies in Medicine Hat, that was all raised through us. Okay, I do a fundraising at least 2 sessions a week in either Rotary clubs or corporations. And so the key things I wanted to add here is, number 1, someone mentioned do a good assessment. I agree. Number 2, a comment I heard, find good partners. The first hospital we started with, we had to walk away from. We couldn't get the demands met that we wanted before our global grant would be used. Number 3, meet regularly. We have a Zoom meeting for 2 hours every week with our partner clubs, the hospital, the city administration, okay, every week. There have been meetings where the people in the Ukraine side had to, a bomb came too close and they took out their power. But we are up to date on a weekly basis. Okay. Now, the last part I wanted to say is someone said, I think it was Manon who said, we may have to blow our own horn a little bit by showing your projects. Most of these Rotary clubs I'm working with will be here next June for the convention. And they want to meet their partners here. And they want to do a shared booth of not just the projects we're working on with them, but there are many Rotary clubs active. I ran into a lot of Rotarians in Warsaw. Many of them couldn't get permission to cross the border, but that doesn't mean they're inactive. If you can recall when the war started, this district raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for aid for the refugees going into Poland. I visited that center. They're so grateful for District 5360, okay, because you guys were one of their biggest funders. But not just from Rotary clubs. When I was at the front, there was a gentleman's name on the wall of a barn. And I said, they said to me, do you know this guy? And I said, no. Well, they said, well, he's from Canada. Well, that's a typical, you heard that many times. And I said, well, Canada's big. He said, well, he's from Alberta. Okay, Alberta's big. He's from a town called Olds, Alberta. Oh, I know Olds, yeah. He said, well, he's the single largest donor for some supplies in the front area of Bakhmut. Now, you see, so it didn't have to be a big organization. You just needed a person with capacity and willingness to do something. And so whether it was this farmer in Olds or this Japanese guy, he's a Rotarian, who gives the soldiers their first meal when they get a 2-day break. So Rotary is extremely important. And you only see it when you see the pain they go through. There's a picture here that I just flashed up. They did a sample run of using art at the hospital for the mental rehabilitation. I did take about 20 or 30 pictures of the art that the wounded patients made. Now, from my perspective, I look at rehabilitation predominantly from physical. Are the legs broken and replaced and all that kind of stuff? The Europeans pay more attention to the mental. And it doesn't hit home until you go and see what they're talking about. So I'm giving you a little bit of a picture. If anyone wishes to be partnering in on any of this, Barbara, you're going to be involved, I know, because Sunny's involved. But the Ukrainian clubs that I have working are looking for more partners if anyone wishes to take part. The Swedes are fantastic to work with, so are the Finns and the Latvians. That's about all I have to say. My projects in Rotary have always been quite large. They've been multiple players, not just Rotary. Someone else made a comment, get the community to buy in. I believe that 110%. We had to reject one hospital because we didn't, and we meaning mostly me, I didn't feel they bought in properly. And so the comments made by the other speakers, I say, I'm a convert. I believe the same thing. But the last part is, don't give up. Okay? The easiest thing is saying, oh shit, I can't handle this. Okay? And it's pretty easy because I used to have hair. That's frustration that took that out. Okay? I would say that if there's a weakness to doing large projects, it's the fact that the stamina is more than most people want to give. Manon, you're the kind that would give it all. I know. Okay,
Well,
any
thank
questions?
you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you so much. And I want to thank my committee. I'm fortunate to have a committee of 4 people. In addition to myself, I've got Manon, Bill Skinner, and Denise Anstey working on these presentations and what we'd like to see. And I think that they chose some wonderful presentations for today, and appreciate very much everything people have said. Now we are after 9, and I was aiming for 9. We did have one more thing we wanted to do, which was to do a quick online poll to answer some questions, so we get a feeling of what people are working on. Do you have another 5 or 10 minutes? Here's the
Yeah.
poll. Manon, and you can answer this right now on your screen by clicking. You just go and click on the answer, um, and then submit it, and she will gather them together and distribute the results. So if you could try, we're trying to use an interactive approach to these meetings, and we'll do so in the future if this works out. So if you could take a minute and try to do this, it would be great. Manon, you're muted. Manon, you're muted.
I know it takes a while to move the mouse to the unmute button. So thanks for reminding me. Do all 4 questions show up on the screen? Because what I see is not what you see. Are you seeing
Yes.
4
We've
questions?
got 2 questions.
Oh,
2
just 2.
questions.
No,
2
there are 4.
questions.
You just have to scroll down.
Oh,
Yeah.
scroll down. You need
Yeah.
to scroll down to
Awesome.
see them all.
Awesome. So there are 4 questions, and I see the results coming in. That's great. Thank you for that. Yeah, the number is clicking up. Thank you. That's great.
I don't get any questions on my screen.
Yeah, I have no questions.
Really? I have a white square in the middle of my screen.
Fortunately, I launched it, and it all depends on what you're looking at, where and how you're running this. If it's on a tablet, it might be different. If it's on a phone, it might be different. And I don't know if your windows are maximized so you get to see everything. I know Lindsay's on the call. Lindsay, if there's any technical advice you can offer at this point.
Oh, I wish I could, but I'm a Microsoft expert versus Zoom.
So we have
I pressed the 3
Yeah,
buttons. There's nothing there either.
81% participation so far, which is great.
What I have for a screen as a basic to start with is everybody's picture.
Mm-hmm.
So having that screen, it popped up in the middle of it.
Yeah, mine doesn't have anything but pictures.
That's funny, isn't it? We'll have to work on this a bit more. But thank you for cooperating with us, and to those of you who submitted, we'll see what we've got. I'm afraid I would cut short at this point because I hate to go over time.
Okay, I
And
will end the poll.
thank you.
Okay.
And Randy? Here's the last.
Just saying
There's the
goodbye.
results.
These are the results. So we can also send these out.
Yes.
So the results popped up on my screen. I don't know if everybody else got them or not. But what we will do in the future going forward, I hope this was useful to you. We appreciate any input you might have. And it is being recorded, so there were a number of people who couldn't make it, but we will send it out to everybody who registered. And we will continue to make this kind of presentation in the future. And if there's anything we could do for individual clubs, would be happy to do that as well. one of the recommendations I had from the meeting in Toronto was to meet with the assistant governors and talk to them so that they could talk to clubs in the district. So I will be pursuing that as well. So we're looking for feedback. Anything you can help us to make this consulting firm more effective, that would be great. So I guess I would probably call it quits there for tonight, but thank you all for being here.